Why is that like that? Hey, Perryman, I can see you there. But I shouldn't see you. Hold on, let me see. Perryman, do me a favor and disable your video. Let me get Nick on here real quick. Come on. There we go. But I should be active. Yes, I should be active. Hey there, Nick. There we go. How you doing, Michelle? Thanks for joining us. Just getting set up here. We'll get started at the top of the hour.
Hi there, Chuck.
Hey there, Nick. Just getting situated. Let's see, let's pin your video instead of mine. How you doing, bud?
Fine.
New office. There you go.
This is the new office. It's lovely.
It is.
Well, we enjoy it.
Let's see here. Okay. I'm just messing around with these settings here a little bit while we get situated.
Okay.
What time is it there, Nick? It's about 8 o'clock almost?
Yeah, well, it should be. Yeah, it's 8 minutes to 8, actually, as it is.
Do me a favor and start speaking, Nick.
I will start speaking. I will tell you something. What do you need?
The video should be switching to you.
It should be, yes. It should automatically switch.
Yes. Michelle, where are you coming from? Where are you joining us from here? While I mess around with these settings.
Texas.
Texas, nice. Oh, hopefully I'm not pinned the rest of this time. That'd be terrible.
Is there anything I can do about that?
How you doing, Harry? Adam, thanks for joining us here. Everything's bigger in Texas. Yeah, nice. What just happened? Let's see, where'd you go? Nick, where'd you go?
Oh, me, I'm still here.
Okay. Did you do something? Did you change it at all?
Did I change what, sorry?
Any settings?
No, I haven't done anything.
Okay. Well, for some reason, I'm having some issues on my side of it. So do me a favor, Nick, and...
Should I try the screen sharing?
I don't know why I'm not getting anything on. Can you pin yourself to the video? How you doing, Harry, and everyone else has just joined? Is that Pak Fu? I like that. It's kind of like Tupac, but different. I'm getting situated here. I'm having a little difficulty on my side. I'm trying to pin Nick as a video. All right, I'm gonna stop messing with it. Nick, So I'm going to have you pin the rest of the time, just because we're getting close.
You're going to be seeing my screen anyway. I'll just, if I share this screen.
Actually, let me see. Okay. Well, what just happened on my side? I just lost you completely. It's beautiful.
I can see myself if that helps.
It's good. It's good. I'm going to hijack the screen real quick before we get started.
Should I stop the screen sharing?
Yeah, I'm just going to steal it here. Definitely appreciate everyone for joining us today. This is not it.
We're a technology company. Do not panic.
There we go.
We know what we're doing.
All right. So we've got my screen shared now. Very cool. I just want to make sure everyone's at the right place. I'm having some little bit of technical difficulties on my side of it. It's all good. Nick's going to take over on the screen today, so it's not going to be too much of a problem. But I just want to make sure you guys are at the right place, making sure that you guys do want to be here to attend this live training with Hindenburg today. And today we're going to be talking about creating a podcast with Hindenburg specifically. And you should have received this notification via email. Today we're going to be covering topics such as recording, post-production sound, post-production editing, and publishing. All right. So if you're in the wrong place, hang out anyways. We'll have fun. Harry asks, will there be a replay sent out? Yes, of course there'll be a replay sent out. And guys, do me a favor, throughout the course of today's training, if you have questions, go ahead and queue those up in this chat box. And what I'll do is I'll moderate today's conversation. And towards the end, I'll make sure that Nick gets all of our questions answered. Q&A is pretty big with us here. And we try not to go over too far as the time goes. To be mindful of your time and of Nick's time, because it's also 8 o'clock where he is. But get those questions queued up, and what I'll do is I'll make sure that we get those answered. All right? Nick's going to have a certain flow throughout the course of today's training, and I'll do my best not to interrupt him. But if we have something that is pertinent that we can squeeze in while he's in middle of a segment, I'll do so. All right? Nick, do you have anything you want to add? Is there?
No.
Ready. Good questions. All right, we've got a couple more minutes here. Let's go ahead and share your background again.
Oh, me. I'm the creative director and one of the founders of Hindenburg Systems, and now we can all see you, Chuck.
You're seeing me again?
I think so.
Me? All right, let's get Nick back on here. Nick, I'm going to pin you. No, you should have been pinned.
So, all right. I'm just going to share my screen and we'll just get on with it.
Okay. We got a couple more minutes here. I just want to hang out.
Oh, we're just going to hang out? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to hang out a little bit. We'll get two more minutes. Make sure everyone has time to arrive.
Okay, so can all make yourselves a nice cup of coffee. Whatever time zone you're in, it might be fitting.
It's strange. I wonder why Zoom's not playing well with me right now. It's usually just fine. There's a lot of people on today's webinar. Definitely appreciate everyone for being here. You're going to be seeing Nick most of today's conversation. My UI is going crazy on my side of it, so that's okay. Nick's going to be sharing his screen. Nick, can you still see me at all?
I can see a really small version of you.
Okay, so you can see when I pop these up, right?
Yes, I have no idea what it means, but I can see them. Okay,
so throughout the course of today's conversation, I'll be popping up these little timestamps to let us know how much time we have left. So 45 means we have 45 minutes left. 30 means we have 30, 15, etc., all the way through Q&A.
Probably have guessed my way through that. I wonder how you put that thingy-madongy in there. So we're technically challenged. Basically, while we're here anyway, being technically challenged is the reason why we founded the company. Well, I did at least, because I hate technology. I love sound engineering, but I really just hate fiddling around with computers. So a little bit about myself until Chuck actually stops me from talking. I am a sound engineer from Danish National Broadcasting. I'm also a producer. And now, clearly, I have a software company. Who should have thought? And the reason why, if none of you has heard this story before, we founded the company in the first place was because I was looking for some really easy to use software for radio journalists in developing countries. Well, here we are. As it turns out, it wasn't just journalists in developing countries that needed easy to use software. Everyone did. Which is great, and we're really happy with that. And since we actually started this, we started out just mainly doing this for radio production. The whole podcasting movement has come in later on. And yeah, we're kind of just the right place at the right time. And now it's 8 o'clock on the dot.
Now we have hit the clock on the dot. Right place at the right time. So, at the top of the hour here, I want to thank everyone for joining us. My name is Chuck Wang. I'll be moderating today's conversation. Nick Dunkerley is our creative director at Hindenburg. And today's 1 hour Hindenburg hour, that is, we're going to be talking about how to create a podcast with podcasting. Haha. And Hindenburg.
Oh dear.
Yes.
As long as we're not going to podcast it.
We're going to podcast this. This is definitely almost like a podcast for us.
I have so many things to say about that.
Today we're going to be talking about recording. We're talking about post-production, sound, post-production editing, and publishing. All right, Nick, I'm going to have to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. So, podcasting. Well, as I was saying just a second ago, we have a radio background. And in the radio that we've been producing has been talk radio. And typically produced radios like features, documentaries, news segments, that kind of thing. Typically stories where you have multiple layers. So if you're really, really new to audio editing, this would be how a typical session would look like. You would have some narration on one track, then you'll have maybe interview on another track, and you might have some music or ambience, and even some more ambience and a little bit more music. So you layer your things as you go. Now, this is obviously a multi-track audio editor, and you might be coming from other multi-track audio editors like Audacity or Audition or Pro Tools, stuff like that. And it's more or less the same thing, but this has been specifically designed for audio narratives. The other systems are great. I've been using them for years, and they're especially great when it comes to music production, film production, that kind of thing. But if you are doing talk radio, or in this situation, podcasts, you need some other tools. And this is where Hindenburg is a great tool. Now, setting auto levels, I'm just going to run it through it really quickly. Automating the levels so you don't have to worry about that. Doing some basic EQing, being able to use a clipboard for storing your clips. All these things are very talk radio specific, or what we'd call narrative storytelling. Anyway, in this situation, we actually do have some things we're going to run through, because I thought we'll do something that's really specifically about how you set up your first podcast. And to begin from the beginning, I'm assuming that most of you actually have some experience. So we're not going to start from Adam and Eve. So from the beginning, we're going to talk about recording and recording yourself. When we're going to record a track, we can see here over on the track, we have different inputs, and here we can choose whatever input we would like to use for the recording. I wonder if I can actually do that. No, I really thought about it. Just use this one. So now we've chosen the microphone that we want to use. we need to arm the track to tell the system which track we're going to be recording on. And the reason why we have to do that is we could be recording on multiple tracks. So in this case, we're just going to record this one track. And we can see we have some audio input. Up here, the volume has turned red, which means we can actually adjust the input of the microphone. And if the signal is in the yellow area with a few peaks in the red, that's just fine. So now we have chosen the microphone that we want to use with the track, and we've set the correct levels. Now all we need to do is actually record it. We can press the button down here at the bottom that's blinking at us. I actually had a pre-roll on this. This is why I didn't record immediately. So now it's recording my input. Has someone got a microphone turned on? I think it's you, Bob. Yeah. So now we're recording, and we recorded that phone conversation. We can use shortcuts for basically everything in Hindenburg, and that's because we've optimized it so you can work really fast. So recording, I'll just stop recording, it'll just be spacebar, and if I wanted to record again, there'll be control spacebar. I've set my system up so it does a pre-roll before recording, and the reason for that is if I do a mistake whilst I'm recording my track, I can always go back, let's see, go back, place my play. I can listen to, you might not be able to hear this, I can place my playhead wherever I want to in the recording. I'm just going to zoom in a bit so you can see it. So if I wanted to do a retake of this or punch in, I could just place my playhead, start the recording again, and when I do that, the playhead will automatically jump back and it will just do a punch in where I set the playhead. You can also just fly, if you're really from the old school of recording, you can just place a playhead, press play, and just punch in whenever you want to record. This is typically people who have been doing this with tape recorders that they enjoy doing this the old-fashioned way. I do that myself. So that's recording. And as you can see, every time I stop the recording, the levels are being adjusted. I don't know if you actually saw that. I'll just do that again. So now we're recording, and I'm just going to record for a little bit. And now when I stop it, the levels here are automatically being adjusted, which is great. That means when you're done your recording, all your levels are already set, so you don't have to go into post and set all your levels by hand. Okay, so this is a situation where you're just tracking your own voice. Let's try to do the situation where you're actually interviewing someone. Let's start from scratch. So we begin in the same way. We choose a microphone for ourselves on that track. Now we want to choose a microphone for the co-host or the guest we have in the studio. You might have some kind of setup where you have multiple microphones. You just choose that microphone for the next track. And then we arm that track as well. So now we have two inputs. Oh, well, I should probably choose something different for that one. There we go. Now we have two inputs. You can't obviously choose the same microphone as I just did, because that would just be silly, because you can't record the same microphone twice. And exactly as we did it before, we can now just begin recording. So now we're recording two tracks. Right now, they look very similar because actually it's just two microphones that are really close to one another. And for some reason, we often get the question, is it not recording separate inputs because it looks like this? And the reason for that is the exact same reason that I have the problem is I'm actually talking into both microphones at the same time. So if you've got a guest that is right next to you with their own microphone, but they're sitting right next to you, your voice will carry over to their microphone and vice versa. So that's called bleed. So there'll be your voice will be bleeding into their microphone and their voice will be bleeding into your microphone. And that doesn't sound very good. So try to avoid that if possible. Probably if you can set some kind of screen between the two microphones, that would be great. We are looking into, at some point, creating an anti-bleed feature, but it's still best just to have a good sound from the beginning. Okay, next situation is that you don't have someone in the studio or in your house next to you who you can record, but you want to record someone online. I am on a Mac, so it's actually more complicated for once on a Mac to do something than it is to do it on Windows. On Windows, you can, if you're on a Windows machine right now, if you choose your input here, you don't see Soundflower, but you do see communication device. All you need to do is just choose communication device as an input and then just record. And that communication device will actually be fed by any audio over IP thing that you have on your computer, like Skype or Google Hangouts or something like that. In this situation, I've got you actually, Chuck, in the background. Let's see if we can get a test call. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to set up Skype so it's actually going to play out through Soundflower. And Soundflower on a Mac is the way that we can regroup. I'm translating from Danish in my head right now. Oh dear. So we want the speakers not to go out here, but want to go out on Soundflower like that. Okay, so that's all we need to do here. And on this end, we've still got the microphone that we want to have as our own track, but down here we want to use Soundflower. There we go. And now if we start recording and see if we can actually able to dial up this one. So as we can see now, we've been recording whatever came from Skype on this track, and we have our own voice on this track up here. So setting, and this is not just for Skype, this goes for any calling system that you like. Just set the output to Soundflower, as long as you're on the Mac, and you can record it. You can go further than that. If you want to record something from YouTube or from the internet, you can use the same principle to record anything, really. You can put it in that way. And again, if you're on a Windows machine, it's even easier. You don't need to go through Soundflower. You just use communication device if you're recording something like an audio over IP call, and you use, I think it's called Your Computer or My Computer, something like that, if you're just going to record from the internet. It's really, really simple. One second, my coffee machine just thought it was a good idea to clean itself. I think you can hear that in the background. Chuck, do you want to ask any questions about recording? Or if not, I'll just jump further on to EQing.
Go ahead and jump further, Nick.
I will jump. Actually, I got a question for you, Chuck. I'm not quite sure if you can hear anything.
I can. Oh, I cannot. I cannot.
You cannot.
Hear. No.
No, let me just see if I can. If I put it out here, we might be able to hear something. Crazy sounds together since they were kids in the city of Utrecht. It's probably not very good, but could you hear that?
I could hear that one.
Okay.
It is
You don't
quiet though.
really, it is, well, you don't really need to hear it, just for the sake of knowing that there's audio there.
Mhm.
So let's say we've been tracking some some voices here. The whole point of using an EQ is to clean up your voice in a sense, so that the listener has a pleasant experience and it needs to be as audible as possible. So anything that's annoying to listen to, you want to try to get rid of that when you're doing an EQ. An EQ, for those who have never seen an EQ, is just the short, what we call an equalizer, and looks something like this. An equalizer is, it can look like all kinds of things, but this is a simple version of an equalizer where you have a high band, mid band, and low band. And the low will be your bass, the middle will be middle, and the high will be the high ends. So any like hissing would be up there, any kind of phone area would be in the middle, and the bass will just be the rumble and bass. And you can use it just as it is, just turn up the knobs like that, and you can thereby adjust your voice. Typically, what you would do is raise it a little bit at the top to give it a little bit of brilliance. If you hold shift, you can actually change the Q value, and then you will remove a little bit of rumble at the bottom and maybe give it a little kick at the far bottom, something like that. That'll be a fairly typical way of doing it. The problem with using equalizers, it could be this one, and it could be any other equalizer that you can find. You can use all your third-party plugins and what have you. Is they're all very good. They can all be really, really complicated, way more complicated than the one that we've provided. We've purposely done it non-complicated. And if you're not in a recording studio, to be honest, you might as well not use them at all. And the same goes for any other effect like compression, that kind of thing. Because the problem is that when we're mixing, this goes back to the radio business. When we're mixing something, we need to be in a controlled environment. And the point of a controlled environment, which a studio is that when you create something that sounds good there, it's going to sound good everywhere. It's going to sound good in your living room and in your kitchen and your car and what have you. That's the whole point of having a music studio, or a sound studio, not a music studio. Well, that as well. But when you're working like we are right now, we're just sitting here with our headphones on or small computer speakers, the only thing that we're actually doing is making sure that whatever we're listening to sounds good in our own headphones or on our own speakers. We don't really know what it's going to sound like anywhere else. It's a very, very dangerous way of producing your sound. So we came up with a solution because we thought, well, how can we make a tool that's going to create an EQ without where it actually knows what you want to sound like? So we came up with something called the voice profiler. I'm just going to pick a session for that. Oh, we've got plenty of time, Chuck, haven't we? Okay, so the point of this one is that here is Clark. They launched a website called One Frame of Fame. I couldn't tell you if it sounds good or not. Actually, I don't think it sounds very good on these speakers, but I know it's good because this is what the BBC wants Clark to sound like. So I'm not going to mess with that. I'm just going to go with faith and go with this is great sounding audio. Now, I want to make a profile of Clark so I can use his sound next time, not his settings, not his EQ settings or anything like that. I want to actually use his sound. Now over here, I've got this little arrow pointing down right next to the effects track. If you've got Hindenburg Journalist Pro, by the way, this is not in Journalist, this is a Pro feature, you can now learn his profile. So this is really what the music studios are doing, and studio engineers, they know what he should sound like in all circumstances. We've just cheated, really. We've taken one of those recordings, and now we've made a profile from it. And we can save that to our own computer. So the next time Clark does a recording, this is some other time, some other day, he could be recording this.
So they launched a website called One Frame of Fame on the site.
Again, to me and these speakers, it sounds equally horrible. It might be even more horrible, but I don't need to worry about that. All I need to do is go in and find Clark's profile. This is the one that was saved before. I can apply that.
Nick, I'm going to stop you real quick here. Sorry. I just want to make sure everyone can hear okay. I'm getting a couple of comments saying that can't hear you speak. Nick?
Can't hear me speak. Don't know what to do about that, to be honest.
Lars can't hear anything at all. I apologize for stopping, but I want to make sure everyone can hear. Otherwise, there's no point
That's true.
having a blank screen with just your talking face, your brilliant face there.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. The only thing that is coming through softly is the playback, which we did hear.
Well, the playback is not really going to come through that good. For some reason, this system doesn't support that.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure. It looks like everyone can hear for the most part.
You can hear me.
Yes.
It doesn't matter about anyone else. As long as you can hear me, you're fine.
There we go. That's Hindenburg.
Everyone happy.
Hindenburg hour right there. Just having some fun. That's what we are all about. Okay. Well, Nick, in that case, I'm going to have you continue. Lars, if you can't hear, try to adjust your settings a little bit on your Zoom interface and on your local computer. Okay. Otherwise, there will also be a replay, and I apologize that you're having some issues. But Nick, go ahead and continue, please.
Okay. No, I completely forgot where I was. The voice profiler. So we have now, let's just do that again, going back slightly. This is the recording that Clark did today. He hasn't added any EQ. He might be sitting in a different room. He might be sitting at home and not in the studio, what have you. All he needs to do is find his profile and apply that, and his job's done. It's that easy. What's going on in the background is that the voice profiler is now comparing the current sound of his recording to what he wants to sound like. And then it's applying an EQ to do his best as to match the two voices. It's still just an EQ. It's not pixie magic or anything like that. You can't suddenly sound like someone else. It's just applying an EQ. But it's applying an EQ in a clever way, so it actually knows what you want to sound like in the first place, what your usual voice is. So that just means for you that you don't have to fiddle around with the EQ settings, and you can be fairly sure that whatever you're doing with the voice profiler is going to sound decent. It's not magic. I'm not going to save everything. Just saying that. Okay, noise reduction, that's another good one. If you have any questions there related to EQ, just jump in there, Chuck. Feel free, but I'm going to find the noise reduction.
We do have a lot of questions being populated, but I'm just going to hold off on the questions. That way you can stay consistent, and we'll get to everything at the end.
Okay, well, right. In this case, it would actually be great if you could hear something. Let's see how it goes.
So they launched a website called One Frame of Fame. On the site, you're presented with one frame of video. You mimic the pose of the frame. Take a shot with your whip.
Still nothing?
I can hear it, but it is quiet though.
I can't do it louder than that. Anyway, you can try that yourselves. This is, again, by the way, it's a pro feature. We're going through some of the pro features. Noise reduction can be a problem. And the typical problems that you'll have with noise is you'll have a computer or an AC, something that kind of rumble that's in the background. You might even have some noise from the electrical system, so you've got this bzzz or something like that. These things are really easy to get rid of with the noise reduction. Typically, noise reduction are a bunch of different pieces of software where you can go in and find the area that needs to be, which is the actual noise, and you'll try to find that and take that and remove that from the background, and then you'll have a different tool for hum and different tool for buzz. And they can be quite complicated, and a lot of the times they make you sound a little bit tinny. For a very long time, we tried to figure out how we could do noise reduction that actually was simple to use, because we obviously realized it's a problem, but it's not going to help anyone if we introduce a tool that was just going to make your problem even worse. So we came up with, not this one, because that's not going to make any sense. Noise reduction. This must be the simplest noise reduction tool in the world. And the way it works is it figures it out all on its own. All you need to do is just play back the sound. So I'm just going to play back the audio now.
So they launched a website called One Frame of Fame. On the site, you're presented with one frame from the video. You mimic the pose of a frame.
Now, in this case, we've got huge amounts of noise. I'm just going to turn down noise because I can actually hear what's going on. And as you can see, it's figuring out where the noise floor is on its own, just by having it played back. And usually this only takes a few seconds to figure it out. But in this case, there's noise and there's hum and there's buzz and everything. So if I let it play around a bit, it's just going to refine it even more. And on this dial here, I can turn up and down the noise reduction and see if it can actually play it loud enough so you can hear it.
On the site, you're presented with one frame from the video.
So this is without it.
One frame of fame. On the site, you're presented with one frame from the video. You mimic the pose of a frame. Take a shot of your webcam and then upload the picture.
Nick, I'm going to stop you real quick here. Sorry. Hey, I just want to make sure that you do have the sound, that you are sharing the computer sound when you share the screen. I assume that you were. I'm going to hijack the screen real quick just because someone did pop up a little support thing up here just to make sure that we are.
So you're saying you can play back the sound from my screen? That would be great.
Yeah.
You figure that out.
So when you clicked to share your screen, let me move this over.
Mm-hmm.
There's a button on the lower left-hand side of the dialog box that popped up. When you click to share the screen again, make sure that that's enabled. I think you did, but I'm just making sure.
I've never seen that button.
Okay, so go ahead and then
okay.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then you grab the screen again. Thank you guys for posting that. I assumed we were all.
Oh, there it is. That's brilliant.
Was it not selected?
No.
Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
Guys, thank you. Definitely thank you for that. All right. Let's see if that makes any difference.
Your default microphone has changed. No, it hasn't. Well, that's just... We should have probably tried this out because now I can try to say something, Chuck, because I can't hear anything right now.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can actually hear you.
Okay.
Now, someone's probably going to be saying, oh, he's using Logic. Why doesn't he use Hindenburg? I use Logic for music production. It's really, really good. I love it. Let's see if this works.
Website called One Frame of Fame. On the site, you're presented with one frame from the video. You mimic the pose of a frame. Take a shot.
Could you hear that?
It's still the same. It hasn't really changed on my side of things. Yeah. Okay, we'll just continue and then.
Well, no, maybe I actually have a Zoom device. Well, one sec. See?
On the site, you're presented with one frame from the video. You mimic the pose in the frame, take a shot with your webcam, and then upload the picture.
Well, the sound is, because it's, for some reason, this Zoom thing
It sounds
makes
compressed.
It sound
yeah.
very compressed. But let's see if it works. I can go back to playing this and you tell me if you can hear it with noise.
So they launched a website called One Frame of Fame. On the site, you're presented with one frame from the video. You mimic the pose in the frame, take a shot with your webcam, and then upload the picture.
Right, it's having a really hard time keeping up. But that's not actually what it sounds like here. It's just the noise you're listening to. Now I'm going to add the noise reduction here.
They launched a website called One Frame of Fame. On the site, you're presented with one frame from the video. You mimic the pose in the frame, take a shot with your webcam, and then upload the picture. More than 30,000.
Could you hear anything from that that was not stuttering?
You can hear it. It is stuttering. It is compressed, but I think it's a much better sound than we were getting before. And just
okay. Well,
just so we know, there's 30 minutes left in the session. Okay.
Right. Okay. I hope you got the idea. I'm sorry about these interruptions from the technical point of view. Usually these things just work, but they don't work. So noise reduction, that's really important. So now we've done the recording. We've recorded ourselves, a host, co-host. We have someone. We've recorded an interview. We have added some EQ and some voice profile and some noise reduction. And let's go on to the next bit, which is how we can actually tidy up our interview afterwards. I'm just going to find myself an interview here. I do realize that many podcasts don't actually do a lot of post-production. And I understand that. I can understand the format of that. But just if you are looking to do some more montaged podcasts, you can do that as well. A typical way of working is that when you have done an interview, you go back, you listen through your interview.
So I'll probably hold the mic about right here.
And then you find the sound bites that you want to use from that interview. You could do that just by selecting the sound bites. You could add it to a scratch track like that, and then you could have all your good sound bites in one track. That would be one way of doing it, but we really recommend that you use the clipboard that we have over here. And the whole point of the clipboard is it's just a place to store your audio and give it names so you can actually figure out where all your sound bites are. So in this case, we could say this was the beginning of the interview, and he was talking about names. And this was the interview with Simon.
But then again, it's also really organic.
Something organic. And whenever we want to listen to these clips again, we can just press play over here.
So I'll probably hold the mic about right here.
Oh dear. And if we want to use them again in our work, we can just drag them out and they're all there. You can be more creative with it if you suddenly feel that you want to start editing. Let's see if there's an
You know, it's kind of funny sometimes. If music makes me smile, then
ah dear. Technology, I swear, someday will keep up with what we think. So we wanted to edit out this. Let's just cut that one out. We want to do a quick, I'm not going to go into the whole editing thing right now. And we take this bit out and maybe remove that bit. There we go. So now we're just getting ahead of ourselves and we're doing a little bit of editing. So we could take this edited piece here and also add that to our clipboard and listen to it from the clipboard as we did before. And whenever we want to use it, we can drag it out and we still have the edits there. We could do with this with as many tracks as we like. If we had something more complex like voice, interview, and voice, and we wanted to save that for later, just do the same thing. Just add that to the clipboard. And whenever you want to use it again, you can just drag it out. The great thing about this is when you have all your clips here, you can get rid of everything else on your workspace. Because all of this is non-destructive editing. You can always go back to your original material just from a single clip like this. We can always go in and find that original interview. But it's really, really, for most people, at least for me, it's really important to have a tidy workspace before I start doing some kind of final montage. We have removing, okay, I'll do a little bit removing the unwanted. Forgot that was in there. I'm really sorry about the delay in the sound when I play back something. It's going to sound horrible if I try to do this.
As well, because it's you know, it's kind of fun.
Some of the things that you're typically trying to remove are stuff like ers, like that one. Hindenburg is just a second. When you edit, it will do an automatic crossfade. So even if I did something like this and just cut this out,
because it's, you know, it's kind of fun.
When I play back, hopefully you can hear this as well. There's no clicks or anything like that I have to tidy up. So you can really just approximate it when you're editing. So this must be another error that I would like to take out. I'll just cut that out.
It's kind of funny sometimes.
By the way, I'm dragging a selection just with the selection tool here when it's at the bottom of a region, like so. There's a number of different ways of making selections and doing this. So this is some of the stuff you can find in our guides. When you've been doing some editing like this, you might find that the interview is, in the interview, some levels are higher than others. So your voice might be a little too low on the interview and the interviewee is a bit higher. If you've split them, your regions up, so you have like one area with yourself and one area with the interviewee, you can actually highlight everything and go up, say, auto level, and the auto level will readjust all the regions. So you'll kind of level out your levels. We don't have that much time. I'm just going to push on. Go open Soundbites, add music and sound. Okay. In this situation here, I've already put some clips in. I've actually also already added some ambient sound. And the way that I did that was just to find any odd bit of sound. I think I've got some sound lying around here. And you can just take that sound and add it to your clipboard. And the good thing about this is that you can have as much many clips lying around there as you like. And if I wanted to add some music, let's see, I'm not quite sure what music I want to use in this situation, so I can just take a few, put them into the clipboard. So I'm spoiled for choice when it actually comes to montaging this. So let's try to set something up. I would like this segment to start with, and let's play that we're in an airport. So I've got some airport sound here. Just give it a slight fade in like that, carry from the beginning. And it would be a nice way to open your story by just presenting where you are in the world. So in comes the narration.
Simone and Kipsky have been creating crazy sounds together.
Now, obviously, we don't want the airport just to stay way too loud at the beginning. So we could turn the volume up and down just by dragging here. But we actually want it to go up at the beginning and then just go down and stay down underneath the rest of the interview. Well, maybe not the rest of it, for some time at least. This is what we call a sound bed. And the way to do that is you drag a short selection, drag outside the selection, and there you go. We made a sound bed.
Simone and Kipsky have been creating crazy sounds together since they were kids in the city of Utrecht.
And you can adjust your levels in real time. Which makes it a lot easier when you're mixing. So just taking the first clip from the interview in here.
Simone and Kipsky have been creating crazy sounds together since they were kids in the city of Utrecht.
My name is Simon Ackermans from Simon and Kipsky.
This doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it doesn't really matter. You get the idea. You can just drag in the next one, give it a slight fade in, fade out, trim it a little bit at the end. Put in the next piece of interview, and you can see it's even adjusting the levels as I'm dragging in new clips. If I wanted it to fade up at the end, I just do a reverse of the sound bed thing. We also have one that's called duck. The idea of that one is that if you wanted the sound to go down underneath the clip and then come up again, you can just do it like that. There you go, you created a duck. So we've tried to take some of the things that we use all the time in audio production and just make it really, really simple and really quick. We don't want to fiddle around with this. We just want to play around with it. It's not rocket science, for heaven's sake.
Even sitars.
Let's see, I've got everyone here in the middle of my screen. Add some music to that one as well. Just put that on another track down here.
Rhythms to make your head jerk.
Okay. I'm just going to place the music where I wanted it right now. This is just an old trick. There you go. Let's have that fade in slightly.
Ackerman says the band's music mixes the layered beats popular with his childhood favorites, Public Enemy, with guitars, drums, keyboards, even
the connection, I tell you, if this sounds as bad as at your places as it does here, it's really horrible. I hope you get the idea. So, and I am not worrying right now about setting the levels correct, because I know that the music is going to be spot on. The levels of the voice track and the interviews are going to be spot on. So really, the only thing I'm concentrating about right now is just placing the pieces of audio where I want them to be rhythmically and whatever makes sense to the story. Obviously, I couldn't go in and apply the profile for Clark afterwards. There you go, that's EQing done. If I wanted to add an EQ to the guests or the interviewee, and I don't have a profile for them, I have a generic one here, that just makes things sound a little better. So we've tried to take the pain of the actual sound engineering out of it and make you be able to focus on the storytelling side of it, which is, I've always thought, the most fun side of it. But then again, I don't like computers very much.
Yo, hands high, touch the sky, get them up.
Okay, I don't have a lot of time, so let's say this is now our final segment or podcast, and we want to publish this. That's the right place. We could export this story now. We have all kinds of different file formats that you can export in. You might want to export yours as an MP3. You can do that. You can choose different qualities depending on your hosts, the pricing models. You can go in and choose what kind of settings you would like to use. Again, depending on your host, they might have some requirements, so you can just set that here. I could not really say what to recommend. Some recommend 192, but it's really all up to you. One of the things that's nice to know is you are able to loudness normalize on your export. All the levels that we're doing internally, all the auto level you've been seeing, that's been loudness based, but also here on your export. So if you are doing a podcast, which I'm assuming you all are, you will need to set it to -16 LUFS. Well, for the most part. If you're doing something for Alexa, it's -14. If you're doing something for the BBC, it's -18. Well, there you go. Most podcasts, -16. So that means when we now export the file, we'll export an MP3 file and we will adjust that file so the overall level is -16 LUFS. We could actually just do that. Let's just do a test MP3. So a few seconds later, whole thing takes a little bit longer when you're doing it as an MP3. As a WAV format, it wouldn't take only a couple of seconds. Let's find that as we're talking. So here we have that MP3. Now what you would need to do is you will need to upload that to your host like Libsyn or Prodigy or what have you, and spend time filling out metadata and what have you. We thought that would be a bad idea, so we made this publish tool for you. And the publish tool gives you an opportunity to set up a number of different export destinations. So if you have Libsyn account, Blueberry, Pology, Whooshka, Podbean, Buzzsprout, Spreaker, they're all there. You can just set up your own account with one of these. Some of you are probably using something completely different that we've never heard of, but just you're welcome to tell us about it and we'll put it on a very long list of things to do. But we are trying to keep up with the most popular podcast hosts. So hopefully you'll recognize your podcast host here somewhere. So all you then need to do is then, let's in this case with Libsyn, I'm going to create a new Libsyn account. You can again set up the file format that you want to use for that account, the quality, again, the loudness normalization, and then you just put in your username and password, and it will create the account here. You can have a number of different accounts. You can have them pointing to different shows, if you like. You could have like multiple targets pointing to Libsyn, but just different shows. It's really all up to you how you set these things up. In here, oh no, that's not the one I want. In here, you can also see that we have different metadata. So all this metadata, well, not all of it. Let's see, take the most usual ones. This is the typical podcast metadata. If you fill that out, that would also be embedded into the file and sent up to your host. So you're just saving yourself a lot of time when it comes to doing that. If you have, if you want to have an archive, you can set that up as well. In this case, my archive is just actually pointing to a folder on my own computer. So when I've done this podcast, I can have it go to a host, maybe multiple hosts, and an archive, and maybe even a radio version to the local radio station. So you can choose multiple outputs. When you say publish, it will create the different files that you need. So a WAV file for the radio and the archive, an MP3 for the spoken, whatever. And in the different levels, radio is at -23, podcast -16, archive, I don't want to loudness normalize that. So all these different files will then be created and uploaded. So it's a really, really quick way of finishing off your product. Now, 10 minutes for Q&A. Chuck, are you happy?
Sure. We can do 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay, 15. Go on. We had some technical problems.
Okay. All right. So real quick, guys, if you do have questions, queue those up, and I'm going to cut those off here real quick. We do have quite a few questions, and we'll get to them, okay? So the very first question that was sent earlier on by Michelle was, is there a way to clean up the echo?
No, we don't have a specific echo cleaning up tool. We have been playing around with it, but we haven't actually had time to work on it properly. But if you do apply the noise reduction, that actually does take away quite a lot of echo.
Okay. Now, Pak Fu asks, can voice meter, I'm not sure if I can read that correctly, can't voice meter virtual audio cables be viable for multi-track?
Pardon? I'm not sure I understood that question either.
Right.
Can you send that question to support and maybe add a little bit more information, and because that sounds very specific.
Okay. And Leanne asks if we had keyboard shortcuts, and I actually did send those already, so that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. John asks, when trying to record mono voice tracks in studio, the meters at the bottom don't register. This happens when running through an Axia console, and also
yeah, the meter at the bottom that's attached to your default microphone. So the default microphone that you've set up in preferences for your recording microphone, that is the one that the meter at the bottom will follow. For reasons I can't remember why.
All right. Harry asks, do you really need voice meter as a digital mixer and preamp, etc.? Do you really need voice meter as a digital mixer and preamp?
Voice meter as a digital. What's the voice meter in this situation? Again, it sounds like another one that if you could write to support and just add a little bit more information. But okay, generally speaking, I'll try to do the one. The better equipment you have whilst recording, the better the end product will be. I'm not quite sure that if this was the question, but if you have a good microphone, a good preamp, and are able to isolate your voice as best possible, it will sound better all the way through. There's an old saying in the music and audio businesses, you can't save it in the mix. And it's very true. You know, you can take something that's not very well sounding and make it sound slightly better. But you can't really save it. The best thing you can do is actually get a decent recording from the get-go. And if you're not quite sure how to do that, if you say, well, I haven't got a music studio, I'm just recording from home, and I'm not joking here, the best solution is to get a pen light or something like it, print out your manuscripts, get into bed, put the duvet over your head, and record it from there. I'm not kidding. This is actually what I've been telling journalists that have been traveling and doing recordings from hotel rooms. Get into bed, do a recording, it will sound great.
Next
Mind
question.
you, if you, I just thought, if you're doing an interview, that might be a little bit cozy. Haven't thought about that.
Why not? Anyways, I'm gonna let that one go. Edward asks, at the start, you said that if I see the levels reaching red, then that's okay. But when does it become bad?
If they stay there. And even worse, if they're too low, if they're not in the yellow area, they're too low. And the problem with there is that you'll have to raise the gain afterwards, and that will just pick up more noise. So have it around the yellow area. That's great, and a few peaks doesn't matter. It's not a big deal.
Mark asks, if I'm using an audio interface with two mics, does that mean that they have to record to the same track and then use stereo separate?
No. Did you say has a sound device with two microphone inputs? Then you'll just choose channel 1 and channel 2. And if I don't have one right now, but then you will be able to choose like left or right on your sound device, or channel 1 and channel 2. So just take the one on the one channel and then the other on the other channel.
Okay. Let's see.
But you can separate them by, afterwards if you like. You can go in and select something and say split stereo, and it will split it into 2 tracks.
All right. We've got, so what's the best bit ratio for podcasting, Nick?
I don't know. Well, I could tell you the best bit rate is the highest one. But it's more philosophy than anything else. It depends. If you have music in your podcast, you want a higher bit rate. If you have music, you also want it to be stereo. If you just have a show where it's just yourself and a voice, it doesn't have to be that high, and you'll then export it in mono. The reason why I have to be a bit hesitant is that some of the hosts have models where it depends on the file size, how much you're paying for it, and others have different models. And then just in general, the smaller your file size is, the worse it's going to sound.
All right. So Jürgen asks, why does the Skype audio show up on your own tracks as well? Is there a proper way to mix minus?
Well, yes, I should not have had it out through my speakers. Just use a headset. That's the only reason it showed up on my track. It was just I was not able to use my headset because I was using it for you guys. Usually, if you're doing an interview on Skype or Hangouts, whatever, just have a headset on, and you will not have any bleed whatsoever.
All right. And then Edward asks kind of a similar question. When using Skype, how does it handle mix minus?
It's Skype that handles the mix minus.
Okay.
And it's actually quite good at it. But all the audio IP things are. So if I was to do the same test again and just use my headset, you will have complete separation of the 2 tracks.
All right. And this is when we started getting into questions of people not being able to hear. All right. Let me skip forward a little bit. So, all right. Hindenburg Broadcaster crashes when applying voice profiler every time. That's what John Panther says. He's got new computers going tomorrow, but he's wondering if there's any issues that we've seen on our end, and hoping it's just a computer issue on his end.
Again, that's a question for support. Can you please send that one to support, because it sounds like an old bug. You might just need to update.
And I've dropped the link for support in the chat box as well, so everyone can see it. Pak Fu asks, is Hindenburg non-destructive? And I think you answered that earlier.
Yes, it is. Non-destructive, so to speak.
All right. Harry, and looks like a bunch of other people, with voice profiler, could someone else Could you use someone else's voice to profile a voice other than your own? I think that's
No, I tried that. I've tried to find some really deep and husky voices and use that as well. And that sounds horrible. It doesn't work. No, you have to use your own voice, unfortunately. You're not going to sound like someone else. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, hold on a second.
And just to say that, then you can say, well, how am I going to create a decent voice profile if I don't have one lying around? It's a good question, and usually you would be able to buy someone a cup of coffee who's in a music studio, because all you need to do is have someone record you for about 30 seconds, set the EQ once and for all, and just take that recording with you home and then create your profile from that. So there's probably a local radio or a local music studio that can do that for you. And if you are going to do this professionally, it's definitely worthwhile.
All right, so this is where we ran into the thick of a lot of the issues, and we had to pause the training for a little bit. I just want to say thank you to everyone that dropped links and to, just for us to kind of troubleshoot in real time what was going on. Arlie, I definitely appreciate all of your comments, and then whoever dropped that link, I think it was Jürgen, for us to check the sound. Just thank you. But sometimes we assume things, but anyways, thank you for all of that. All right, Harry asks, well, you just answered that about the voice profiler going to the studio. Okay, so Alan McDuffie asked, with voice profiler, will it work if I'm using a different microphone if, say, I'm out in the field?
It will try. Let's put it that way. It will do its best to make sound similar. But again, it's just an EQ. It's not a magical tool. So it's not going to work every time, but it's definitely worth trying it out.
All right. Flappy asks, this webinar is about producing a podcast, right? I'd like to hear some practical advices. So he's looking for practical advice about producing a podcast.
That's a very broad question.
Yeah, it's very, because there's so many different ways to produce a podcast.
Well, I could do, several hours on how to do actual recording techniques and how to do build up a story and that kind of thing. This is not really the time and place. This is just how we can do it with the features and the software that you can use. Goes slightly beyond the scope of what we can do within an hour.
Is there a recommended order for editing and applying effects, Nick?
No, not really. You can do whatever you like. I personally wouldn't use a lot of effects. It depends on what kind of effects we're talking about. I don't use a lot of effects like reverb and delay and distortion and that kind of thing. I like to just edit my way out of it. The way that I would usually I actually would I use the clipboard a lot. So what I would do, I would start editing a part of the story and saying, well, okay, this part of the story here, this really works. I'm just going to put that into the clipboard and use that for later. So not only do I have the actual sound bites that I like from the story, but I actually have parts of the interview or the story arc, so to speak. So I have an opening, I have a climax, and I can start playing around with that, moving things around afterwards. But it really depends on how much you want to go into detail with your story.
Okay, so this is sorry, I'm just laughing at some of the comments because this is one that the audio got kind of quote unquote janky, so it was kind of funny to read that. All right. So the next question from Pakpu is, can Discord voice be used as an input? Can Discord voice be used as an input without VACs, VACs?
I'm not sure what it is. I have no idea what that is, but more than likely, yes.
Okay.
If it's a let me put it that way, you can plug any USB device in, and if it registers, not with us, we don't actually do any of that. But if your computer actually can see that device, whatever that device is, so can we. We just pick up from your operating system. So if your operating system can see your input device, your audio input device, then it will just show up as a device in Hindenburg as well.
And Arthur asks, is there a normalizing feature to make audio levels match if unequal at recording? Answer is yes, but...
Well, yes, but at the moment you'll have to split them up. If it's one long recording, as I went into this earlier, if you have a long recording where it's uneven, you have to just split them up and then just apply the auto level, and then it will be divided, leveled out.
Can Hindi mix audio files of different sample rates? For example, if some files are at 48 kilohertz, others at 41.1 or 32.
They will all files that are imported will automatically be converted to wave and the same sample rate. So you don't have to worry about that.
Is it possible to delete one of the clipboard sections? I don't like how they get bunched together when displaying markers too. I often only need 3 clipboards.
Yes, you can. You can go into, let me see, properties, clipboards, and then just select clipboard and just say minus. Just get rid of it.
Yep. All right. How do you set up Hindenburg before recording, Nick?
We started out by doing that. You select the microphone that you would like to record with. Let's see if you can work with this one that I've got here. Arm the track, and then you're ready to record.
Are there any preferences that you usually use? Set up for Hindenburg, that is?
I'm not quite sure. There's no other preferences than this. I'm not quite sure where we're going with the question. There might be something I'm missing.
No, I'm just being a little more broad.
Great, Chuck. Thanks.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just be slightly confusing here at the end of the night.
No, it's more like do you set like do you need to set your levels? Is there like little settings that you personally have dialed in for your workspace, etc., that kind of thing?
And now, if I'm just recording myself, this will just be the way I do it. I'll check that my levels are in the orange area when I'm speaking. I'll just go for it. There's no more to it than that. It's really straightforward.
Yeah, I think it was my roundabout bad way of saying it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot you need to do.
Oh, that's what you were trying to say.
Yeah, that's my roundabout.
It is pretty simple. I was looking for a difficult way of sort of saying something simple.
My fault. All right, so Jim asks, he's got Hindenburg. To close and start a session, I have to click File, New. Do you ever plan on adding close? File, close?
Well, no, because, maybe, hopefully in the next version, because you can't have multiple sessions open in Hindenburg at the moment. You can only have one open at a time. So it doesn't actually make any sense to have a close function. As far as I remember, the CTO told me once. So it's either quit or no. And if you're just doing a new session, it will just ask you if you want to save the old one, and it'll just open a new session. So you don't really need close. Okay.
And this next question comes about, it's in regards to publishing. Now, Jürgen loves this feature. The question is there an option for future date scheduling, for example, in Libsyn?
No.
I think there might be a workaround.
It's a good idea, but we don't have it.
I think there's a workaround with that, Jürgen, that I used to use was like you publish to like the draft section. Let's say if you publish all your podcasts to a draft section, and then from there, go ahead and you can like future date, each individually there.
Yeah, you can set that up in Libsyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's what
you can set that up in most podcast hosts, but you can't do it remotely from Hindenburg.
Correct. Okay.
I don't know if we can. That's a handle we can actually get to. I haven't ever heard of that in an API.
Just real quick, I've seen more questions being populated. No more questions,
That's
guys.
fine.
We got to
No,
run.
it's fine. It's fine. No,
Are you sure? Okay. I want to make sure that we stay relatively close to time. All right. Let's see. Does metadata screen support templates for producing multiple different podcasts? These are actually really good questions, guys.
They are good questions. Yeah, they're really good questions. No, we do not have templates at the moment. It's on our to-do list, but it's a good question. You can create your own templates, so to say. Just create a session where you just have all the metadata input. But we're not able to, at the moment, have different metadata templates you can just add to whatever session that you're working on. It's a good idea.
So they'd have to create like a new session for each podcast that they want to create. Okay. The next question is, I have recorded an interview with Zoom, H2N, and Wave at 96 kilohertz, 24-bit, but in Hindenburg, I only hear noise. Is there a solution?
Yes, because it's not resampling properly for some reason. If you try to do a recording on 44.1, 16-bit, that should work fine. Why we're not able to resample 96 kilohertz? We should be able to resample that. I'm not quite sure. You're very welcome to send us a file and we can try it out.
Nick, I'm going to share my screen real quick. This question is, I'm going to butcher it. So, okay. I have it highlighted here. Can you see this? It says suggestions on how to bring audio from Skype. Nick, so the talent in the studio can hear the caller.
I'm seeing the online support screen right now. Is that what you wanted to share?
No.
I see you.
Can you see it? No? You still see just the online support?
Yep.
Okay. It's part of the Zoom chat box. All right, we'll go back to you. That's okay. So the question was a suggestion on how to bring audio from Skype. Mix so the talent in the studio can hear the caller in headphones. The talent in studio would be on track 1 and interviewee Skype on track 2. Thoughts?
And the question was, how do they hear what again?
Suggestions on how to bring in audio from Skype mixed so the talent in the studio can hear the caller in headphones.
Well, they will be able to hear the caller in the headphones. Wait a minute, I'm just going to... this screen down here is on top of my button. I'm just going to share my screen again. As soon when you're recording, if you've got input, you'll be able to hear that typically. If you want to listen to something before you actually start recording, you can right-click on the on track and set record monitor to on, and then you'll be able to hear whatever is coming into that track. I hope that was the answer.
Okay. Yeah, John, if that wasn't answered to your satisfaction, just drop a more detailed question into our support directly.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that when you are doing these things, Skype, if you're doing a Skype recording, let's just stick to that one. What Skype is transmitting is still coming from here. So if you have set up a microphone that is not in the same room as you are, whatever, whoever you're talking to is not going to be able to hear it. We're not routing back any audio to Skype. This is what Skype is picking up right now. So right now, Skype is just using the same microphone that I'm using to record. But I could have set it up to use a different microphone. I could also set it up to use Soundflower, which in that case, you wouldn't hear a damn thing. So with the routing for whatever the interviewee is listening to, that is actually going through Skype. That might have clarified things.
All right, so
Did
Jolly, no, people. I'm telling you, guys have to stop asking questions. All right, Jolly asks. So, I'm hosting at home and using clips from an ambulatory interview with a guest, where we're both rigged with labs into a Zoom H4n, and I'm holding the Zoom to take 2 channels of ambient sound as well. With those 4 channels, what would you recommend for placing them in terms of stereo placement?
Wait a minute, that was just my son calling, asking me where the hell I am. Can you do that again, sorry?
Sure.
It was a Zoom?
Right, so she's hosting at home using clips from an ambulatory interview with a guest where they're both rigged and they're using lab mics into a Zoom H4n. And the person's holding the Zoom to take 2 channels of ambient sound as well. With those 4 channels, what do you recommend in terms of placing them for stereo placement in the mix?
That is a really complex question. So you have 4 tracks, and 2 of them are ambience. Are they all? No, there must be mono tracks then. So you have 2 mono microphones and 2 mono ambience. Don't know. I just haven't listened to it, to be honest. I just have the 4 tracks all going at once. You can just take what's coming from your Zoom and just drag it in. You just have all the tracks here at once, and then just start trying to balance them out. To be honest, and then add some more tracks. If you want to add more tracks, you can always add more tracks, and for additional clips and what have you. It's really difficult to say. I have to hear that, to be honest.
All right, Michelle asks, how can I apply noise reduction with regular journalist?
You can't.
And that is because?
Because it's not there. It's a pro feature.
Okay, Paravan asks, is it possible to insert a new recording into existing recording and the whole right side is shifted? Or what's the easiest way to insert a new part of it into an existing multi-track recording? So how do you insert audio into an existing audio track?
Okay. Are we talking about maybe something like this, where you got something where you've already done your mix and now suddenly you figured out that you want to put something in the middle there?
I think that'd be one scenario. The other one, I think most likely what he's asking about, if you just had just one single track and you wanted to insert sound into the middle of an audio clip. So yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay. If I have a mix like this and I want to insert something, I can use this feature here where I can just select from this clip and all the way, just move that. And then I could take whatever it was that I wanted to insert in there, put it in there like that. Highlight this again and drag it back in. So that will be one way of inserting a clip. Give us a thumbs up if that's what you actually meant. Otherwise, I'll try something else. And by the way, if you're on a Mac, that is holding Option, Command, and then just click on the region. It will select everything to end. That's Alt Control, I think it's called, or Option Control on Windows.
Okay.
Did that answer the question? Do you know that, Joe?
I haven't seen anything yet. There's a ton of questions I'm trying to get through, so I can't scroll down just yet. I believe so, though. I do actually believe so. Next question, Nick, is the export normalization algorithm ensuring that voice remains prominent for podcast at -16 LUFS?
It's not ensuring that the voice is prominent. That's not how loudness works. It's just ensuring that the overall file is minus 16 LUFS. There's two different things. But it does secure that your overall levels are minus 16 LUFS. It just hasn't really got anything to do with the voice.
All right. Stephanie joined the conversation late, and she asks whether or not Hindenburg is just editing software, or can you record to it as well?
You really did come in late. You can record into it as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry about that, kid.
Oh, wow. That was the end of the wait, hold on.
Well,
we actually read to the end of the question.
Did you come to the end?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. Yeah, it just came up on me. Well,
yes, you can we're going back to the beginning now, full circle. Arm a track. You can record yourself. You can record multi-tracks if you just briefly do it again. So just have different inputs here. I could record Soundflower at the same time. You can record yourself. And there we go, recording as many tracks as you like in Hindenburg Journalist Pro, by the way. Because Hindenburg Journalist is not multi-track recording. You can just record one track at a time. And
the last question for the day was a follow-up question for Stephanie is, can you record with more than one person in different locations?
Yes.
Okay. Short answer. How would you do that, Nick? How? Sorry.
Stop giggling.
Yeah, we get punched. I can punch you after a while here. So.
No, if it depends on what the different location is. If the different location is in another room, then you just have to have a long cable for your microphone. It will be fine, and just put that into your computer. If the different location is in a different country, and you just call them on Skype or Google Hangouts or what have you. Actually, if you are, this is just in general, because I have heard quite a lot of interviews done on Skype, and they are fine if you're doing short interviews. If you're doing an entire 1 hour podcast interviewing a guest on Skype, that sounds horrible. Really, please do not do that. Have whoever you're interviewing, if they are somewhat computer savvy, record themselves on their computer and then FTP that final file up to you, and then just drag that into your session so you have full quality of both yourself and the interviewee. Because Skype recordings, they're good for documenting that someone actually says something, but they're not great to listen to for an amount of time. That's nothing to do with software, just more me ranting.
All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for today. There will be a replay available about 48 hours after the fact. The last time we had a technical difficulty, and that's why there was no recording. But this time, it should be okay. And we'll get that posted to Facebook. If you registered, as you did register for this event, I'll make sure that you guys get sent emails. If you don't receive one, definitely just contact us on Facebook or send me a message, and we'll get that too. But we will post on Facebook as well as YouTube, and that way it's always available. Okay?
Yeah, and next time I hope that we can fix out the audio issues that we had, because Bear, it's really, really horrible that we as an audio company are not able to actually play sound.
Well,
it's not our product.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was just going to say that. I didn't want to make an excuse, but yeah, it's really, is it though? It's the compression. Anyways, but I don't want to end on that.
I assume it's not our fault. It's the thing that we're using. Whatever that is.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes, it's been great.
And, we're going to we'll do these once a month, and that's the goal, unless something comes up. And Nick's on holiday, or he's at a conference, or I am at a conference with these guys. But yeah, definitely join us again. All right. Thank you very much. Nick, any parting words?
Well, no, I'm just going to go to bed now. No, it's been great, and thanks for all the really interesting questions. And if seriously, I also am answering quite a lot of the support. So if you feel that I was not able to answer the question here, just write to support and complain nicely, and I'll try to figure out a better way of answering it, because sometimes things are more complex.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.